He made time for everything except me. I waited, I hinted, I asked. Then one night, I did something that finally got his full attention, but not in the way he expected. He walked past me again, headphones in, half smiling at something on his screen. Didn't notice my eyes on him, didn't ask how my day was, didn't even pause, just kept moving like I was furniture. Like I was air. That used to hurt. Now I just counted it. How many steps he could take through the apartment without acknowledging me. How many hours we could sit on opposite ends of the couch without a real word exchanged. How many nights I went to bed with his back turned to me, face lit by his phone. Colin always had time, that was the funny part. Time for the gym, time for drinks with his team, time to help Lena move a shelf, or meet his friend Jake for poker night, or spend half a Saturday fixing a playlist for a party he never invited me to. Just not time for me. He said all the right things in passing. Sorry, babe, I'll make it up to you. Just crazy busy right now. You know how it is. But eventually, apologies lose shape. And sorry starts to sound like noise. I used to push back. Ask if we could eat dinner together without screens. Ask if he could skip one gym session. Ask if he even noticed how quiet I'd become. Now I don't ask. Because there's a difference between patience and self-abandonment. And I've been standing in that gap for too long. He walked past me again tonight, mumbling something I didn't catch, already halfway to his office. Headphones in, no eye contact, and I knew something in me had shifted, not broken. Just settled, because you can only reach for someone so many times before your arms ache. And mine were tired. We had plans, nothing elaborate. Just dinner at that little Thai place we liked, the one we used to walk to before he started driving everywhere in a rush. I'd mentioned it days before, sent a text to confirm the time, even asked, should I make the reservation or you? He said, let me handle it. I believed him. Friday came. I got home, changed, lit a candle by the window, not because it meant anything to him, but because I needed the air to smell like effort. He texted at 6:41 p.m. works nuts. I'll make it up to you. I stared at it. No punctuation, no apology, just a brush off with a promise he wouldn't keep. I didn't reply. I blew out the candle, changed back into sweatpants, put leftovers in the microwave and stared out the window while they spun. It wasn't the first time, wasn't even the third. The makeup promises were stacking. A phantom version of our relationship that existed only in future tense. We'll do something next week. I'll take you out soon. You deserve better than this, just let me get through this month. I'd waited through so many this months that the seasons had started to blur. I used to remind him. Gently, directly, even playfully. Now I just tracked it like a weather pattern. Plan made, plan missed, excuse sent, nothing rescheduled. I finished my food, did the dishes, sat down in front of the TV alone again, and let the flicker of the screen wash over me while the space between us stretched farther than ever. Mara didn't sugarcoat things, she never had. We were sitting on her couch the next morning, legs curled up, mugs in hand. I hadn't said much, just mumbled something about Colin being slammed at work again. She looked at me, head tilted, the way she does when she's deciding how honest to be. Then, he's not too busy, he's too comfortable. I opened my mouth to respond, to explain, to defend, to soften what she meant, but nothing came out. So I just shrugged. She didn't push. Just added, you don't have to keep making it easier for him to neglect you. That one landed, quietly, like a soft weight on my chest I couldn't shake off. We moved on, talked about other things. Laughed about some terrible show we both hate watch. But her words stayed with me like a splinter I couldn't dig out. Too comfortable. That's what it was, wasn't it? Colin wasn't chasing anything anymore. Not me, not us. He had what he wanted, the girlfriend who didn't demand, who let things slide, who sat quietly in the background while he prioritized everything else. I'd made it so easy for him. And now I was starting to wonder what it would look like if I didn't. Travis noticed things, not in a dramatic way, not in a way that made me feel watched or weighed, just in a way that felt intentional. New earrings, he asked one morning, passing by my desk. I looked up startled, touched my ear. Yeah. They look good, he said, smiling already halfway down the hall. It caught me off guard. Not the compliment itself, but the fact that someone had noticed. That someone had been looking closely enough to recognize when something small had changed. It happened again a few days later. I came in after a restless night, low energy, head down. He passed me a coffee, my order, no words, just the cup with my name scribbled on it. I looked at him. He just said, "Rough morning." I nodded, he nodded back, that was it. Travis wasn't a threat, wasn't someone I was drawn to in that way. But he was present, a mirror to what had gone missing in my relationship. Kindness without obligation, attention without effort. Colin hadn't asked how my day was in weeks, hadn't commented on my hair, my earrings, my moods. He lived beside me without seeing me. And then there was this coworker, someone who didn't owe me a thing, noticing all the little shifts my boyfriend ignored. It didn't make me want Travis. It just reminded me I wasn't invisible. I tried one more time, not with a speech, not with tears, just with effort. I left work early, picked up ingredients for dinner, his favorite. Set the table, lit candles, even put on the dress he once said made me look like I gave a damn. I gave a damn. I wanted him to see that. The food stayed warm in the oven. I stayed cold in the quiet. Colin came home almost 2 hours later. No text, no call, walked in talking about traffic, dropped his keys on the counter, kissed the top of my head like I was an afterthought. "I'm starving," he said, already heading to the kitchen. He grabbed a plate, served himself, and walked into the living room, turned on the TV, sat, didn't look at the table, didn't notice the candles, didn't see the dress. I stood in the kitchen doorway for a minute, hoping for something, a second glance, a question, a flicker of recognition. Nothing. He ate in silence, eyes glued to the screen. I turned off the oven, blew out the candles, wiped the lipstick from my mouth, not in anger, just in resignation. Because there's a specific kind of heartbreak that happens when you realize someone didn't even notice the moment they stopped valuing you. And that night, while he sat feet away from me, laughing at a show I didn't care about, I felt lonelier than I ever had alone. I stared at myself in the mirror longer than usual the next morning, not to check for flaws, not to see if I looked good. I was searching for proof I still existed. Because when someone stops seeing you, you start wondering if you've somehow turned transparent, if you've slipped out of your own life without realizing it. My reflection looked tired, not tragic, not broken, just dulled, like someone had dimmed the brightness a few notches and forgotten to turn it back up. I leaned closer, studied the corners of my eyes, the way my mouth sat when I wasn't performing some version of okay. Colin walked past the open door, towel over his shoulder, scrolling his phone. Didn't look up, didn't see me, didn't say good morning. I watched his reflection move behind mine. A blur, a ghost. It hit me then, the real kind of hard. I'd spent months trying to pull him toward me, to be loud enough, soft enough, pretty enough, still enough. To earn back attention he used to give freely. But all I'd done was fade. Not because I stopped trying, because he stopped looking. And if I had to remind someone to see me, maybe I wasn't the one who was disappearing. Maybe he was. I stopped texting first. It wasn't a decision I announced, even to myself. It just happened. One morning, I looked at my phone and felt the usual instinct to send a quick check-in, to ask if he wanted coffee, to keep the thread of us alive. But my fingers didn't move. That day, he didn't notice, so I tried again the next. Still nothing. No, you okay? No, everything good. Just silence, like the thread was only real when I held my end tight. I stopped reminding him about groceries, stopped asking about his meetings, stopped filling the air with care he never returned, and still nothing changed. He didn't get mean, he didn't get defensive, he just didn't notice. It was like watching someone slowly let go of your hand without realizing they were ever holding it. The silence between us stopped being a red flag. It became the wallpaper. And I stopped reaching not to punish him, not to test him, but to survive it. To protect what little of myself I had left. Because affection without reciprocity turns into begging. And I was done begging. Lena showed up on a Wednesday. She stopped by to drop off a charger Colin had left at her place. I opened the door, and she gave me the kind of hug that felt polite, not warm. We sat for a minute, made awkward conversation while Colin looked for something in the bedroom. Then she tilted her head, looked at me and said, "You've been quiet lately. You okay?" I smiled, small, controlled, just tired. She nodded like she believed me, or maybe like she didn't want to press. Lena wasn't nosy. She'd always been neutral, the kind of sibling who stayed out of things unless asked. But even she could feel it, the heaviness in the room, the slow drip of something coming undone. "I've never seen you this still," she said softly. "You're usually more there." I didn't respond, just sipped my water and looked past her. She didn't push. Just handed Colin the charger when he came out, said goodbye, and left with a longer than usual glance back at me. And that was the first time I realized it wasn't just me feeling the shift. Even someone who wasn't paying close attention could tell. I was retreating, not loudly, just enough to stop being there. I sent him a meme. One of those funny, slightly sharp ones about being the forgotten girlfriend. The kind people repost with a laugh, but secretly hope their partner reads a little too carefully. It had a cartoon woman holding up a sign that said, "Remember me? You used to love me before emails, gym reps, and fantasy football." I added a lol this is too real and sent it. He replied with a thumbs up emoji. That was it. No, are you okay? No, hey, is this how you're feeling? Not even a real laugh, just a digital shrug. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the reply bar, and realized I had nothing left to say. That meme wasn't a joke. It was a soft reach, a signal flare, and he didn't even look up to watch it burn. Humor had always been my last defense, the quiet way I tried to say, "Please see me," without having to spell it out. But that night, I finally understood. You can't hint someone into caring. You can't meme your way into mattering. And when even your jokes go unanswered, that's when you know you've stopped being part of the story. You're just background noise now. I lay next to him that night, both of us facing away from each other, and stared at the ceiling. His breathing was even, relaxed. One arm thrown across his chest like he'd already clocked out of everything. I looked at the ceiling fan spinning above us and realized I couldn't remember the last time he'd touched me without it being automatic. A kiss goodbye, a hand on my waist in passing, all reflex. No presence. And still I stayed. Not because I wanted to. Because I didn't know what it would mean if I didn't. But in that stillness, in that airless space between his world and mine, a thought landed so clearly I could feel it in my chest. I need to make this imbalance visible. Not to punish him, not to manipulate, just to put a mirror up. Because the problem wasn't just that he stopped seeing me. It was that I had started disappearing to myself, too. So I decided, not out loud, not dramatically, that I would stop compensating. Stop carrying the whole emotional load and calling it partnership. Let the silence be his. Let the gap echo. Let the reflection show exactly what he built with all his forgetting. And maybe then he'd finally notice something was missing. I didn't change overnight. I just started matching his energy. No more "how was your day?" when he walked in. No more leaning in during movies. No more filling dead air with conversation just to keep the room from feeling cold. I stopped making the bed, stopped reaching for his hand, stopped softening every sharp moment between us. He didn't notice. He still dropped his keys on the counter like a man returning to comfort, still grabbed dinner and sat in front of the TV, still kissed the top of my head out of habit, not intention. But I was different now. I was present physically, absent everywhere else. Emotionally, I had vacated, and that was the cruelest part of all. He couldn't tell the difference. He was so used to the version of me that carried both of us that my silence felt like rest to him, not distance. And I watched it happen. Watched him lean into the quiet like it was peace, not warning. That's what happens when someone confuses your exhaustion for stability. They don't realize they're losing you until you're already gone. I started spending more time at Mara's. At first, it was just a drink after work, then a late dinner, then a full night me on her couch, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like detergent and freedom. I didn't announce it to Colin. Didn't leave a note, didn't text to explain. He didn't ask, not that night, not the next morning. The silence was mutual now, but only one of us realized it was strategic. Mara didn't push. She just handed me a glass of wine, queued up a movie we'd seen a dozen times, and let me laugh without asking why I wasn't crying. We stayed up late talking about nothing, about everything, about how long you can live in a relationship before you admit it stopped being a home. "I don't think he's cruel," I said, staring at the ceiling. Mara snorted. "Cruel would be easier." At least you could point to something. She was right. Colin wasn't cruel. He was careless. And the damage wasn't in what he did, it was in what he never noticed. That night I slept hard, no tension in my chest. No straining for the sound of keys in the door. No wondering if I should speak or stay quiet. I just breathed. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't miss him. I got a promotion that week. Small title bump, bit more pay. Nothing huge, but it mattered to me not for the money, but for the validation. For the feeling that someone somewhere had noticed how hard I'd been working. I didn't tell Colin, not out of spite, just instinct. Because I already knew how it would go. I'd share the news, he'd look up from his phone, say, "Nice, babe," and go back to whatever held his attention more than me. Instead, I texted Mara. Then I told Travis at lunch. He grinned and said, "Knew they'd see it eventually." We went out that night, Mara, Travis, a few others from work. Nothing crazy. Just drinks, laughter, that easy glow that comes when you're around people who know how to celebrate without being prompted. I wore the dress Colin didn't notice weeks ago. Travis bought the second round. Mara toasted. I smiled more than I had in months. At 10:42 p.m., Colin texted, "You good?" No context, no follow-up. I stared at it for a second, then turned my phone face down on the table. That was the moment I knew. Not that he was wrong for me, not that it was over, but that the we I kept trying to resuscitate had stopped breathing long ago. When I got home that night, the apartment felt too bright. Lights still on, TV humming in the background, Colin on the couch, half asleep, remote in hand. He looked up when I walked in. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, his eyes actually paused on me, took me in. "You look nice," he said, voice scratchy from sleep. I nodded, took off my shoes, didn't answer. Something in the air shifted, not dramatic, not loud. Just enough, he sat up straighter, put the remote down. "Where were you?" he asked, no edge to it, just curiosity or maybe confusion. I shrugged. "Out." He watched me for a beat, then added, "Did you eat?" That question used to mean something. It used to come with a plate warming in the oven, with effort, with follow-through. Now it was filler. "I'm good," I said, walking past him. He didn't stop me, but his eyes stayed on me longer than usual, like he'd finally realized something wasn't where he left it. He could feel the silence now, not as peace, but as distance. And it hit him harder than anything I'd ever said. The question came just before bed. I was brushing my teeth, lights dimmed, hair tied back. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed like he was trying to hold his own weight. "Are we okay?" he asked. I didn't flinch. I finished rinsing my mouth, wiped my hands, and looked at him through the mirror. "Are we okay?" I repeated. Not a question, a reflection. He nodded once. Hesitant, hopeful, I turned around. "What do you think?" He didn't answer. Just stood there, blinking, like he hadn't expected me to ask it back. That's the thing about people who don't pay attention. When you finally stop doing all the emotional heavy lifting, they confuse your quiet for cruelty. They think the problem is new, because it's the first time they're feeling it. But I'd been feeling it for months. I watched his face shift, slow and quiet, as the math started to catch up. The missed dinners, the unread texts, the jokes left unanswered. The birthday he forgot, he wanted reassurance. I had none left to give, so I walked past him, crawled into bed, turned off the lamp. And in the dark, I let the silence answer for me. I started folding clothes into a small overnight bag the next morning. Deliberate. Quiet. No drama, just jeans, a sweater, a charger, a toothbrush. He watched me from the kitchen, leaning on the counter like he didn't know what to say or if he was allowed to ask. "Where are you going?" he finally said, voice low. I zipped the bag slowly. "Mara's." "For how long?" "I don't know." He moved toward me like he might stop me, then thought better of it. I stood up, slipped on my jacket, picked up the bag, walked toward the door. "Wait," he said, finally stepping in my path. "Can we talk?" I looked at him, really looked. He wasn't angry. He wasn't begging. He was scared. But not of losing me. Of losing the version of me who stayed quiet. And I was done being her. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't cry. I just said, "I've been talking. You just stopped listening a long time ago." He opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. And I walked past him, not to punish him, not to make a scene, but because he made time for everything except me, and I was done making time for someone who never looked up. He followed me to the door, barefoot, holding nothing, looking like someone who'd woken up in the middle of a fire he didn't smell coming. I paused, hand on the doorknob. He said my name, quiet, like it might soften everything. I turned back, met his eyes for the first time all morning. "You made time for everything but me," I said. No anger, no volume, just truth. He flinched like it was a slap, even though I hadn't moved. "So I made time to remember who I was without you." His face crumpled just slightly, not enough to break, just enough to know the words had landed. I didn't wait for a reply. I opened the door, stepped into the hallway, and closed it behind me. No bags dropping dramatically. No tears, just the sound of the lock clicking and the first breath I'd taken in weeks that didn't feel borrowed. The first call came that evening. I let it ring. No voicemail. The second came the next day, followed by a text, "Can we talk?" Still no reply, then another. "I didn't realize how bad things were. I'm sorry, I miss you." Then a longer one. Paragraphs, words like lost, love, mistake, please. I read it once. Didn't respond. Not because I was angry, because I didn't need anything from it. His attention had finally arrived, too late, too reactive, too shaped by fear of losing, not love of having. That's the thing about people like Colin. They don't recognize value until it walks out, until the silence grows louder than all their excuses. And then they come running. But by then, you're already gone, not blocked, not raging. Just unreachable in the way that matters. A few days later, I woke up on Mara's couch with sunlight stretching across the floor like it was trying to find me. No pings, no missed calls, no unread messages lighting up my phone. I didn't check it right away. Instead, I stood, opened the blinds, and let the light in. Quiet, soft, unearned by anyone but me. Mara was still asleep in the other room. The apartment smelled like coffee from the night before. My overnight bag sat in the corner, half open, half forgotten. I made a piece of toast. Sat on the floor with it, legs crossed like a kid, staring out the window. It hit me slowly like warm water. I didn't feel anxious. I wasn't waiting for his voice. Wasn't rehearsing a conversation that wouldn't change anything. Wasn't checking timestamps or typing out messages I'd never send. I was still, and that stillness felt earned. My peace was louder than his silence ever was. And that, more than anything, felt like the real shift, not just leaving him, but returning to myself without needing him to watch. I took myself to brunch, just me. No plans, no pretending it was a work thing or that someone might show up later. I picked a place with big windows and plants hanging from the ceiling, the kind of spot where couples sit close and strangers sip slow. I ordered the drink I liked but rarely got, too sweet, too extra, something he used to roll his eyes at. The server smiled when I said, "Table for one." Not pity, not surprise, just welcome. I sat by the window. Checked no texts, opened no apps, just watched the street, let the sun hit my arm, let the quiet come without rushing to fill it. When the food came, I didn't reach for my phone, didn't scroll, didn't pose the plate for a photo. I just ate slowly. I caught my reflection in the window glass, noticed the way my shoulders weren't tense, the way my mouth sat in a soft line, not trying to smile, not trying to prove anything. And in that second I thought, this is what it means to be seen, not by someone else, by myself. I didn't need his attention anymore, because I had finally given it back to the one person who never should have gone without it, me. Thank you for watching. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I love you all.